The Long Walk, directed by Francis Lawrence of Hunger Games fame, is an adaptation of one of Stephen King's earliest novels of the same name. The premise, as far as the film adaptation goes, is as follows. Set in a dystopian America under an authoritarian rule, 50 boys, one for each state, are chosen to participate in what is called the Long Walk. In this Long Walk, each participant must maintain a 3 miles per hour pace or above, and if they fail to do so, they will be, after a few warnings, shot and killed. This goes on until there is inevitably one boy left standing. He will then be rewarded with a hefty cash prize and a wish of his choosing. A little while ago, I went to see this film. I watched it, walked out of the theater, bought another ticket, walked right back in, and watched it again immediately after. If that gives you any indication on the depth of my feeling toward this film. I knew that I had to see it again. In fact, I have seen it again since that point. I went and took some family members to see it, and then again, my 4th rewatch was just last night. When a film really burrows its way into my heart and mind and body and soul, there is no solution but to discuss it. And that's what I'm here to do today. We are going to talk about The Long Walk. The first part is going to be kind of a general review, really no spoilers, and then I will give a warning before the second part when I kind of dive into more specifics and details of the plot itself, so you will be forewarned. But I really liked this film, and I think it's a very important film, and I really don't think people are talking enough about it. It's relatively easy for a film to make you feel. It is significantly harder for a film to make you think. And this film has both in droves. Not only was I sobbing so hard for the last 20 to 30 minutes of this film that I had to literally physically cover my mouth to stifle the wails that were going to be coming from me audibly in a theater full of people. I had to do that out of respect for those around me. I had to have some decorum, some decency. We're in public after all. But I also thought so much. This is such a thought-provoking film, and J.T. Molnar's script really goes through the gamut of so many different concepts and themes and really rich kind of emotional tapestries. Through the characters, this film explores so many ideologies, psychologies, personalities, worldviews, point of views. It is unbelievable kind of how much they are able to have in this film, and the philosophy, really, that they're able to discuss. I mean, you're thinking about existential dread, you're thinking about life, you're thinking about death, you're thinking about family, you're thinking about war, you're thinking about violence, you're thinking about gun violence, you're thinking about found friendship, you're thinking about intimacy, you're thinking about vulnerability, you're thinking about existentialism. Like, the list goes on and on and on of the types of thoughts that this film really provokes in you, and my wheels started turning, and they literally have not stopped since. I cannot stop thinking about this movie. I cannot stop thinking about the themes and the dilemmas that are brought up in this movie. And this is the sort of thing where this movie really just reminded me and got me back in touch with why I feel like film is such an important medium and films are so important to so many different people, is that at their best, they really are there to make you feel and to make you think. And I just cannot recall a film that has made me feel or think anywhere near as much as this one has in a very long time. There's such a fascinating tone to this because they're really striking a balance at any given moment between two completely opposing ideologies and worldviews and tones, which is that it is always very dark and dismal and pessimistic and cynical, but at the exact same time, it is overwhelmingly hopeful and joyful and loving and inspirational and optimistic. It is kind of an incredible feat that it manages to do both of those things at once, but again, I feel like that is really reflective of life. I really identified with that, and I kind of loved being pushed and pulled in so many different directions, and it made me feel like, oh, that's what life is. This is life. You know what I mean? Like, it was that sort of thing where I really was just reflecting and going, life really do be like that. It really do be the worst and also the best. And people also are the worst and the best all at once and at the same time. And there's so much beauty, and there's also so much nastiness all in this world all at once. And I really think that that's such a brilliant kind of depiction and reflection of the world at large. There is so much that's so dark and dismal and terrible. I mean, terrible. But at the same time, there's so much beauty and light and love to be found. And this film is like the epitome of that. This film also feels shockingly and almost uncomfortably relevant for today's issues, but the core story that Stephen King weaves here, I think, is so true and transcendent that it really can apply at any given time. Obviously, this was written a long time ago. This was not written for today. And yet, when it's adapted, it really does apply to today. But again, these are themes and concepts and ideas that I think humanity and society has always been pondering and maybe will always be pondering. So in a way, it feels very eternal. One of the things that really stands out about this film, and I truly cannot and will not ever be able to express this enough, is the characters and the relationships, particularly the relationships between these young men. I do not know if I have ever seen such an intimate, affectionate, vulnerable, loving portrait of male friendship ever in my entire life, of a male relationship even, in real life or in cinema. And again, this is one of those things that really cinema does affect real life. So the standard that's set by cinema can often impact what is societally acceptable. And I think that that's why this is really important among many other issues. This film is so like uninhibited and so unafraid to show love and affection and tenderness. This film, oh God, the relationship, oh, I could cry. The relationship between these boys is achingly tender. You feel it all over you. Like, it is really something so, so special. And that is a credit mostly to Cooper Hoffman and David Johnson, whose performances I will get into a little bit more. But these relationships, there is such vulnerability and such sensitivity and emotion within each of these boys in how they're characterized individually, but also in how they interact with each other, that I found it deeply like moving and very touching. Truly, like, it touched me. It moved me deeply to see these boys look out for each other and love each other and be so fearless in their love for one another. And I think it's such an unfortunate reality that there's so much stigma and all of this weird connotation around men having friendships as close and intimate and personal as women have friendships. I really think that that needs to be not only accepted, but encouraged and celebrated. And this film feels like a celebration of that kind of connection, really focusing on the community and the found family that can be had through these types of relationships and connections. The intimacy, the emotional vulnerability is so, so important to see that with men in general, with young men in particular. And I really hope sets like a precedent and an example for real life to follow, because I think we would all be so much better off if these kinds of relationships were not only accepted, but really encouraged and bolstered by society at large. And that is why I think this film is like genuinely very important and very moving and feels very special to me. That at its core, like, just feels almost like revolutionary to me. It really does, which I know sounds ridiculous and sounds trite, but it's true. I really, seeing these relationships, I was so moved and so touched by the love between these boys. It made me feel such a tenderness and have such a soft spot, not only for these particular fictional young boys and men, but for young boys and men in general. It made me really hopeful for the future. And that's also not to say, it's important to point out that the script didn't necessarily lionize them. You know what I mean? Like, they're still kind of awkward, pretty crass, young, dumb boys. But I really felt that it showed kind of the entirety of them. Like, the characterization of these boys felt so fully fleshed out and so empathetic and humanizing. I don't know that I have ever really seen a lot of male portrayals be kind of this all-encompassing and comprehensive, in that you see kind of the good, bad, and the ugly. You see all these different sides of them and all these different emotions from them. Like, they really run the gamut of kind of the whole spectrum of emotion. And I think you really see and know them in such a special way because of that. And you have such fondness toward them because of that as well. And I really don't know that a lot of characters are ever written as comprehensively as these characters are. You really see them in their full humanity. It's impossible to talk about this film without talking about the main two characters, not only their characters, their relationship, but the performances from Cooper Hoffman and David Johnson, respectively. And now when we get into spoilers, I'm gonna deep dive into this relationship a lot more. But these performances are just stellar. They really are. And I do have to say, I think that David Johnson for many is going to be a standout, and he certainly is a scene stealer. He is exuberant and effervescent in such a way. He's so magnetic. He is so charismatic. It is truly like otherworldly a little bit at times. I was like, whoa, who is this man? Whoa, what has happened? Why are you the best person I've ever seen in my life? Hello, like that is kind of the vibe that he brings to it. But I do want to point out that this is not possible and this is not tenable without the anchor of Cooper Hoffman. And seeing it 4 times now, that becomes exceedingly clear to me each time that I watch it. These two are the heartbeat of the film. So if you don't have good performances from these two, this movie does not work at all. But it's so exceptional that these performances are at the caliber that they are, because I think it really elevates this to another level as well. Cooper Hoffman is such a naturalistic actor, and I think that is one of the most overlooked and undervalued and appreciated types of acting that there is. His performance is so good that there is not 1 second that he's on screen that I am thinking it's a performance. I truly did not register him as an actor. I did not register a single thing that he said as a delivery, as a choice, as a performance whatsoever. And I know that that sounds somewhat trite. It sounds almost stupid. It's like, that's a given. That's how it should be. But really, it really is very rare to have a person that disappears so completely into the character that they're playing that you really are not even on any level, subconsciously even, aware that this is an actor giving a performance. He's so good. When he spoke, you could like see the thought in his head, and it felt like it really truly was a thought that was coming to him that he then said, rather than an actor delivering a line from a script. And that's a really rare kind of talent, to be able to hone into that and to be so locked in. And that's another thing with his scene partners. I mean, I truly, like, it's kind of unbelievable to me. You would not know there's a camera there. Like, this is just a guy. This is a guy having a conversation. This is like, it's a documentary. It's like watching a real life person. He says and does things exactly how you would in that situation, exactly how just an average person would. There's no artifice, there's no pomp and circumstance, there's no real like glamour or vanity to it. He just seems so real, so realistic. He's so grounded, he's so lived in these characters that I truly forget that that's like an actor. That this is not a person that I'm watching just having a conversation in front of me. That in and of itself is such an impressive feat and something to laud that I really don't think we do. We do not value this kind of acting at all, but it's actually the most foundational and most impressive type of acting that you can really do, that you forget completely that this is an actor, that this is a movie, that this is a performance, that this is a script. It is really something special. And he also, I mean, he just has a presence. He does have a sort of magnetism. He's captivating. He's good to watch. He has been, you know, ever since I saw him in Licorice Pizza, I remember thinking, yeah, he has, you can't take your eyes off of him. He has that. But at the exact same time, it's like, that's Ray. That's Ray. That's the character Ray. I am not thinking about literally anything else when I'm watching him other than what is going on exactly in front of me, and that is really an impressive feat. I started hearing about David Johnson and the Oscar campaign for him, essentially, like this man will win an Oscar one day, and let me tell you, I'm on board. I was not familiar with his work. I really had never seen him in anything before this, but it is that kind of performance that's just so undeniable that you go, oh, yeah, that guy, there you go, that's a talent. That is something and someone to watch. And there is something very special about not only that character, but the way that he plays this. The thing is, both of these characters could be way lesser if not for the elevated performances from both of these people. Not to mention, the chemistry between the two of them is unbelievable. real, unbelievable. It really is the kind of chemistry that's kind of like a lightning in a bottle type scenario, which is why I'm so happy to hear that they're already going to do another movie together, because to me, this is one of my gripes with Hollywood. I have said this forever. I do not understand why when two actors have such like electric, life-changing, world-ending chemistry, why Hollywood doesn't immediately bankroll 10 projects of them together. It doesn't make any sense to me, because let me tell you, I'll be seated for their next film. I'm basically I'm begging to give you money right now because I want to see Cooper Hoffman and David Johnson in another film together. And I'm so glad that they're doing it. And it's A24 too. Anyway, I'm already seated. You know what I mean? Like, you have a built-in audience. I really don't understand why Hollywood doesn't take advantage of that kind of chemistry more often. And I'm so glad to see that they're already doing it here. I cannot wait. I hope that they continue to be in films for the rest of time. Truly. And I will see every single one. Let me tell you, I will be seated. That is how good the chemistry is in this one project, that I am on board for literally anything and everything those two do together for the rest of time, okay? That's what we're dealing with right now. It is electric, truly. And it's so, oh God, it's moving, it's sweet, it's realistic, and it's heartbreaking, it's heart-making. It really is like an experience to see those two together. And again, like I said, they're so locked in. The connection and the eye contact that they have with each other, which again, sounds like it should be a given, and it really should, but it's really not. Because when you see what they're doing, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's how it's supposed to be done. Everybody else, I don't know what you're doing, it's not right. It's not good enough, because look at this. It really is the type of thing that comes along and you're like, oh, yes, that's how it's supposed to be. And almost this entire film feels like that to me. I'm like, yes, this is what movies are supposed to be. They're supposed to make you think and feel. There's also something so great about this film because it does feel so human at its core. You know, this is a doomed premise. It is doomed from the very beginning. You know that going in as an audience member. They all know that. Every single character on that screen knows that it's doomed, and yet they can't help but help each other. They can't help but love each other. They can't help but form attachment. They know it's probably not smart. They know how it's going to end, and yet they do it anyway. And I think there's something so beautiful and so profound and so poignant about that. And again, so human. It really feels like the truth and depth of humanity, like this camaraderie, this community that they're able to build with each other, even if and when they're in competition. It's like, of course you would be having these sorts of talks at your end, like you're walking to your death, essentially. Like you would talk about these sorts of things. You would confide in each other in these ways. You would want to help each other out. And I think there's such a positive image overall of people, of humanity at its core there, because all that this film does, I mean, it is so dark and there's so much evil in it, but there's so much light and there's so much love that anchors it and that buoys it, and that is like the core of it at every given time. These boys are just like sacrificing themselves. They're you know, giving things up for each other. They're saving each other. They're looking out for each other. They're protecting each other. And there's something so beautiful about that even in these dire times where it doesn't actually really make any sense and it would probably be better to keep your distance, they can't help but form attachments. And I think that that's so beautiful. And again, it's such a particular tone to strike because you just feel it the entire time. It's like this mounting and building tension of like, you know how it has to end. They know how it has to end. And yet you hope it won't anyway. And you try and forget, and you spend the entire time just hoping that it won't end that way, even though you all know that it will. And that's also an interesting parallel experience from both the characters in the story and the people watching on the outside. Because you know how it's gonna end, you know what happens, and you can't help but care about them anyway. And that is very human to me. It does need to be said that this film is very graphic as far as its depictions of violence. This is a very bloody film, this is a very gory film, this is a very detailed film. This shows things up close and personal, the entire thing. Like, you are going into this knowing, obviously, from the premise alone that there's going to be violence. But the interesting thing that this film has made me realize is that we as a society and in film history are so desensitized to violence in general, but gun violence in particular. It's so oversaturated in real life and in cinema You know, how many movies have you seen with a gun, with people dying from a gun, with gunfights? Like, it feels like there's at least one gun in every single movie at this point. So that is not new. That's nothing special. But actually, when you really think about it, a lot of those things are kind of from far away. It's kind of zoomed out. It's really not a close-up. It really doesn't show all that much. You understand intuitively what's going on. And I think the familiarity with that as a concept, with that visually, also really leads you to be desensitized to it. So those things are kind of abstract. It's like from far away in the background, you know, gunshots going off and people just falling over and you see maybe a little bit of blood. Like that's the sort of thing that we're used to seeing. This is not that. This is not that by a long shot. This is very graphic. This is very detailed. And I think that that's very important. Stephen King actually said that that was kind of a stipulation of his, if this was going to get a movie adaptation, that they really had to show it, and show it they did. They show kind of everything. It is up close and personal. So that is a fair warning, but I actually think that that's really, really, really special and really important about this film, and something that really took me out of myself and made me kind of have a realization. I don't think I had even realized how desensitized I was to violence and to gun violence in particular, in film and in general, until this movie, because when I started to see the actual practical, literal, physical effects of this weapon, right, which is what this focuses on, it focuses on, okay, what does that actually do to a body, to a human being? Like, what is that? What does that look like? What impact does that have? And once you really focus on that, you realize that you're never actually thinking about that you're so detached, that you're so desensitized to that you kind of have this idea of what a gun is, of what, being shot is, and it's so nebulous, it's so abstract in your mind. This really forces you to confront what exactly that is, and it made me really think about gun violence in a way that I don't know that I have in a really long time, and I feel very grateful for that, and I feel it's very necessary. It's very important because these people are actually going through this, and this has to be brutal, and this has to show that. And I think it would be like cowardly and a little bit of a disservice to the story, to the characters, to the cause as a whole, the idea, to not really show that. That being said, if you are really, really anti-gore, but still want to see this, you will literally get warnings. You literally get a lead up. Like, you will be able to cover your eyes and know exactly when something is going to happen. It really doesn't happen out of nowhere. There is nothing that you can't really predict is coming and cover your eyes accordingly for. So if you really cannot tolerate gore or violence being depicted in kind of a graphic way, then you can avoid it. But I would encourage people to try not to, because I actually think it's really important, and I understand why Stephen King made that a stipulation for this story. And in general, I think that this is actually a really kind of important thing that they did in this film that made me think about the world at large and this issue at large in a way that I really haven't in a while, unfortunately. Like, you really do become so desensitized to it, and I didn't realize that until this film. Now, I hesitate to call this film fun or entertaining, but it is very gripping and engrossing. You will be on the edge of your seat. I think there's something about this format also that really inherently makes you put yourself in their shoes. And so there's that aspect of it that feels very visceral. This premise, although it technically preceded The Hunger Games and Squid Game, is very similar in nature to those kinds of films. And I think that that's why this film was able to be made in the time that it is, because you already have this audience and the success of things like The Hunger Games, like Squid Game. I mean, it is pretty similar as far as the concept goes. And I also think that there is that element of audience participation, which is, I mean, it's so bizarre when you really think about it, but you really do place yourself in their shoes and you're starting to go, okay, what are the strategies? Whose strategy is best? There's all these kind of unforeseen circumstances that you didn't think of. You're like, oh, I didn't consider that. Okay, who has a change of shoes? How long would I last? You're really placing yourself in that position and thinking, okay, how would I do in this? Where would I get to? Like, what strategy do I agree with? You're predicting who will be the finalists and the front runners. In that way, weirdly, it does kind of make it a spectator sport as well, because you're like, okay, who's gonna last? Who's going out win? And why did that person go out? And you're kind of waiting. You have this suspense, you have this tension. You're kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're waiting for each new reason and each new person to fall out, and why did they and how did they? And You know, one of the things, like, I talked about a lot of things with my family after this, but that was one of the things we were talking about, like, how far would you last? Like, like, what strategy would you use? Like, who did you think, you know, that sort of thing. And there is something, again, I really hesitate to call anything about this movie fun, but there is something kind of a little bit participatory and communal about this film that I think is special. And, you know, if you like Squid Game, if you like Hunger Games, you will like this. You just will. Like, it is very different in a lot of ways, but that premise alone is enough to sell you, where it's this fatalistic and dire, you know, circumstance, and I mean, it's terrible. It's terrible. And yet people are watching within the universe, and you're watching too. And what does that say too? Yikes. I also do want to take a second to really shout out Lionsgate in particular for the marketing of this film, especially on 3 points. Number one, I think they were really smart with the trailer, because I remember watching the trailer, it got me hooked. Like, I was like, oh, I need to see that actually. Actually, I will be seeing that, thank you very much. But it really didn't give away a lot. Not that there's too much to give away, but as far as like the cast goes, there were so many familiar faces that I had no idea were in this from the trailer. And it was like, it was like a, you know, delightful little surprise every time. I was like, oh my gosh, him, oh my gosh, him, oh my gosh. Like, that was kind of, I don't know, like exciting about it a little bit. So I think they were really strategic and smart with how much they showed in the trailers and in the promotional material to get people on board. But they really, there's so much that they kept close to the vest. I think that that was really smart. Number two, the whole walking while you watch stunt that they pulled, genius. Absolutely, so good. So good. So good. So, I mean, there's nothing else to say. It's genius. And number three, thank the Lord for Lionsgate finally seeing the light. Whatever Gen Z or Gen Z adjacent or Gen Z informed person is making those TikToks and those edits, those long walk edits on the long walk account or the Lionsgate account, thank you. Thank you so much. I have prayed for days like these. I've literally been begging for this. This is what you need. This is exactly how you market this film. It's genius. The likes are insane. The engagement is insane. Are you guys seeing this? I mean, hello. But they really have a finger on the pulse as far as like what factions and fandoms are going to really engage in this. And I think they're really smart to know their audience and to know that that is the way to go about it. I do wish there was a little bit more behind the scenes, but that's neither here nor there. Just hire me. I'll be on a set. You guys, the content I would create, I mean, hello. But I do want to really like praise them and give them a shout out for that, because I just think that that is so smart. That's the way forward. Like, that's the future. You have to really embrace these methods of social media and these trends and things like that. And it's not going anywhere, and that's kind of what runs the world as far as these sorts of things are concerned. So actually respecting that, actually learning about it, actually engaging with it rather than scoffing at it is very smart, and I have to applaud them for that. Okay, so now I'm gonna go a little bit more into depth with some of the plot points and details. So if you have not seen it and want to remain unspoiled, this is your time to go, but please go see this. This is a great film. I really would recommend it. I think it's important. I want more people to see it. I want more people to be talking about it. Hello, we need to, I'm like, let me interview the cast. What do you mean? Because I've been watching interviews and they're not asking the questions that need to be asked. Like, we're not really diving into it, and here I am like, hello, this is all I can think about. this is my life right now, the long walk. Everything's the long walk, so we need a better press tour, hello. Anyway, but I would really recommend that you see it. I think it's a really important film. I think it's a really special film. It's really unique, and it is guaranteed to make you feel and think. And what else is film for? What else is the point of a film, truly? To me and for me, that is the point of films and filmmaking. Okay, so first I do want to say that the Vietnam War parallels are very evident in this. I believe Stephen King was writing, like, kind of the inspiration for this was kind of, you know, young men being drafted for the Vietnam War, and then we televise it, and then we're all watching it at home, like the kind of the horror of that in and of itself. But there's so many things that are relevant to that. Not only, you know, the opening letter is very much like, you know, a draft letter, even though, again, they make the point to say that this is voluntary, but how voluntary is it? I'll get to that too, because I love that concept being explored there. The dire straits that they're in and these drastic circumstances really do bond them in such a special and particular way that, again, I really don't see much. But if I had to make a comparison, like war movies and war tales in general, you do think about that. Like, they call each other brothers, right? Brothers in arms. Like, there's a bond, there's a family that's built that is so specific that kind of defies all logic and reason and expectations outside of it. It's something entirely apart, right? This experience of going through something so traumatic together and seeing each other die and helping each other. Like, there are so many parallels in that way. So I think the brotherhood on both aspects and on both fronts is very, very clear, and that connection and parallel is really good. Again, I think also of, like, at the very end when they're singing, you know, what was it, America the Beautiful, or they were singing some patriotic song, and then, you know, Pete's looking up at the fireworks and everybody's screaming and cheering, and it's like the disillusionment of coming home. Oh my God. Like, and the patriotism of, like, singing these patriotic songs and doing a whole celebration and fireworks, and it's like this man's life was just ruined, and 49 other boys were just murdered, and we're celebrating. And it's kind of a similar thing when you think about soldiers coming back home and the PTSD that can come as a result of that, and the disillusionment, and kind of how their whole worldview and perspective kind of changes. It's like, they're like, what was that for? What did I do that for? What did any of us do that for? And now we're acting like this was a great thing that happened, and all in the name of king and country. And like that was also something that they did hit on throughout this, that this is, you know, a patriotic practice. This is inspirational. This is really going to fix the epidemic of laziness, which, again, love that they talked about this, because there's something so fundamentally wrong in that pattern of thought that the people in power have in this and in general. Like, you cannot be placing people in these situations, like, structurally, governmentally, financially, and then being like, well, you're just lazy. You know what I mean? Like, there's something so ironic and so sinister about placing the onus on the people who are kind of disenfranchised in the first place. So I really love that. I love the exploration of vengeance versus love and what that is. I think Burr and Hamilton really kind of reminded me of Pete and Ray a little bit, in that they have such opposing ideologies, and by the end they kind of switch, and it's maybe not for the better. It's kind of up to interpretation, which we'll get to the ending too. That's a whole other thing. But I love when that happens in stories, when two characters have such, like, opposing ideologies, and they change each other. You know, well, I'm kind of thinking of Glinda and Elphaba now too, but, like, their love for each other changes each other in such a way. You know what I mean? Like, Ray comes into it so despondent, so hopeless, so cynical. Like, he cannot see any beauty, he cannot see any love, he cannot see any hope, any future. And then through Pete, that's how he finds it. At the exact same time, Pete is so hopeful and so, like, loving. He has such kind of, not rose-colored glasses, but he has a choose love mindset and a positivity. But it's through that relationship with Ray and losing Ray in the way that he did, that he then becomes despondent, that he then becomes hopeless, that he then starts to question, what is this all for, and why did I do this, and was I even right, and was he right all along? Should I do it his way? That sort of thing, that sort of reckoning that they have to come to, where their ideologies kind of essentially flip, is really interesting to me, and I loved watching it. So good. Oh my God, so good. Ooh, so good. I do have to say also, I mean, this is kind of just all over the place now. I'm just rapid firing every other thought, but, you know, the face cards are crazy. They really are. And also, you know what? I don't even understand it, because when I first watched this, I was like, oh, good. They have, like, you know, normal looking guys. And they are. Like, it's not like they're, you know, models, any of them, except for maybe Stebbins. Maybe Stebbins. And maybe Collie. Well, actually, now that I say it, I'm like, actually, when I really think about it, but I'm like, they look like, you know, of course, because of hair and makeup and costumes as well, like, they look worn down. They look like kind of normal guys going about this, which is exactly the type of thing that you need. You don't need to cast, like, a big major Hollywood glamour superstar in these kinds of roles, I really don't think it would work to begin with. So it's good. The casting is good on that front. Not to mention they also delivered, hello. But also, here I am at first saying, oh, look at all these, you know, they got all these average guys, and yet I'm in love with every single one of them. And yet I'm asking for their hand in marriage and think about them nonstop. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean? How does that make any sense? How does that make any sense? It doesn't. But we press on. We prevail. We prevail anyway. The offer of marriage to every man in this movie is open. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. I'm kidding, kind of. But speaking of the men in this movie, I love to see, again, like I said, I was so surprised to see Charlie Plummer. I said, Jojo Rabbit, what are you doing here? Get out of here. And I kept questioning myself because I was like, that is Roman Griffin Davis, isn't it? Because I was like, I haven't seen him since Jojo Rabbit, really. And I was like, that looks like, it looks like a grown-up, like that is how he would look. It is, I think it is. And it was. There were so many people that like felt very familiar to me. Ben Wong as well. I just really loved like seeing all these kind of familiar, and then I didn't even realize, this is maybe my bad, this is on me, but I didn't realize that Mark Hamill was the major in the trailer. So then I was like, oh, okay, Mark Hamill, work, period, okay. But I kind of loved that. And I also loved like getting to discover boys that like I didn't know yet, or any actors that I hadn't seen in anything before. And I thought that all of them were really good. Like, they had such distinct characters, especially, like, the main kind of, like, 8 had such distinct characters and arcs and characterizations, and they really played to it. And I also love that really there's no such thing as, like, a villain among the boys, at least, which it really appears there is throughout the film. But once you reach the end of the film, you're like, oh, actually, they're just kids, and they just want love at the end of the day, and it's, like, absolutely devastating. But, like, Barkovich, you know, he's an interesting character. Charlie Plummer is actually an interesting choice to play him because, at least from what I've seen of him, like, Words on Bathroom Walls, hello. Literally nobody's seen that movie, and I'm like, actually, it was kind of everything to me. I went and saw it in theaters. Was I the only one there? Yes. Did it speak to me? Yes. But he's obviously pretty well known. Like, he has a pretty big filmography at this point. And this is such an against type role for him, which I love for him. But it's interesting. It is like a little weird and jarring to see him in this kind of role, but you know, he is interesting in that, you know, he really does try at the beginning to kind of bond with them, feels rejected, and then he lashes out, right? And you see that pattern throughout. He keeps lashing out and kind of despite himself, and he can't help it, and he keeps making it worse for himself. And then he's isolated and lonely, and he always has been. And, you know, I also love that, you know, there's so much posturing about him. You know, they say like, oh, I can't wait to see your brains on the floor or whatever. They say, I can't wait for you to die, that sort of thing. They're constantly talking about that. And then of course, when he dies, they're like distraught and despondent, right? I really love the kind of like irony of that and how that was so quickly proven wrong often. And then I even felt that way when Barkovich was taunting Rank and then all of a sudden is like screaming at him to get up, like, please get up, like you have to get up. You know what I mean? Like, there's just something about, like, them thinking they know everything and them being so wrong and it being so handed to them. And there's such, like, a cruel, like, tragedy and irony in that. And I think there's a lot of moments like that where, you know, it seems one way and then it's revealed to be another way. I think Stebbins, his reveal, it's heartbreaking in the end. His wish, oh my God, his wish was just to be taken into his father's home. Okay. Now, do I have personal issues where hits especially hard? Yes. But it's just, I mean, it's tragic. And then he says, you know, it's been an honor walking with you, when like throughout the film, he's not really an antagonist, but he kind of is a little bit. He's framed initially as kind of an opponent, a guy to look out for, competition. And then throughout it's not like an actively hostile kind of relationship, but it's not a very nice one either. And then at the end, they've gone through all this together and they just see each other so clearly and so fully in such a vulnerable kind of way that it's like you can't help but really see them as humans and really empathize with them and love them in a way. Like there's such a bond and brotherhood, again, even between those that like they kind of hated the entire time. They still don't want to see them go, and that's how horrific this is. And I really loved kind of all the twists of fate and cruel irony moments like that throughout the film. There's so many. I really maybe need to do a video once it's like out on Blu-ray or whatever. Blu-ray, as if I've watched a Blu-ray in the last 10 years. As once it's out on online streaming. There's so many line deliveries from Cooper that are just so good. Like, I mean, it's like couldn't have been better. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh yeah, that's exactly how you would say it in that situation. That feels so realistic. Like, it's, again, crazy how realistic. I mean, there's moments from everybody. There is actually a lot of humor in this. I mean, I'm sure, you know, if you've seen it, you know, there certainly are moments to laugh, and there's fun to be had. But again, everything is like underscored with this just tragedy and doom, which I love personally. I'm kind of a macabre person. I'm kind of, I love sad things. Like, sad, dark, really fucked up stuff is my favorite kind of stuff, my favorite kind of movies, TV shows, music. So I'm loving, you know, when they're singing together, the Clementine song, going past the car on fire, walking toward their death. Well, I love that. And that's life. That's life, baby. That's life for you. I love all the kind of philosophical arguments that are had throughout this film. You know, like choosing, like, vengeance isn't enough, choose love. And then again, they kind of switch. Again, very much Burr and Hamilton. I'm not throwing away my shot. He throws away his shot. And then Burr, I'm willing to wait for it. And then he doesn't wait for it. It's like the doom, like their ending is the opposite thing that they've been doing the entire time, that they've been kind of like living and dying by. And I love that. I love that turn. It's so good. But I think, you know, love versus vengeance, that is kind of a concept. I also loved, it felt very relevant to me also in these times in particular, the whole, you know, Ray calls that family watching them pigs. And Pete says, you know, your wish is nothing if you don't believe in that family. And I love that so much because it's so true. Because it's like, how can we blame them for being a part of this society and this system that we are also a part of? And if you don't believe in them, if you don't look at them and see love and see a family and see human beings, the second that you start like villainizing and demonizing another side like that in such a way, it's so dangerous. And it's so easy to happen. It's so easy to look at other people, say pigs, demons, evil, whatever you want. Like, and it just cannot be the case. And you cannot allow it to be the case, and that cannot consume you. So as to not consume your humanity and your empathy. So like that was I felt that was really special and impactful. I loved what they said also about kind of, you know, the mind being very powerful. And I do think, as much as I'm like, well, I like have a disorder that we're trying to figure out. I literally have a walking and standing disorder. So I would be dead. I would be so dead. It's not even funny. At the same time, there is a part of me that goes, but if I really, really wanted to, I'm a survivor, so maybe I could just turn that switch in my mind on. That's neither here nor there, but that sort of thing where it's like, you know, it's a thing in the mind that you decide that you're going to do this and that you can do this. You know, there are mothers who have lifted cars off their babies. And I think that that's such an interesting thing to explore too, because it's like how much of this is actually like physical acumen and how much of it is mental. What goes into that, like who is really qualified to win this? That's another thing that I love that they talk about. It's like anybody can do it. It's like, but no, the system is so rigged to begin with, because even things like, you know, I remember Barkovich got a rock in his shoe and had to tie it, and, you know, people have to go to the restroom and, you know, or they break an ankle or, you know, things like that. It's like, it feels so unfair. It feels like such an injustice. And you're like, but wait, you want to like beg and plead for extenuating circumstances almost on their behalf. And then, you know, by proxy on your own, where you're just like, well, I couldn't have known that a rock was going to get in my shoe. How is that my fault? There are all these extraneous factors and influences that go into this, or a shoe breaking and you having to walk on your feet. There's so many things that come about throughout this walk that really are beyond your control. And they frame it in a way that, oh, it's all in your control, and, you know, but you just have to decide to do it, and you just have to keep walking. But if your ankle is broken, if you twist your ankle, if there's all these things, like if you have a hemorrhage, if you have a stroke, if you have a seizure, you know what I mean? There's all these, not to mention all the mental and emotional and psychological elements that are at play here. But it's such a good kind of like metaphor for that sort of mindset of like, oh, well, we just need to get rid of laziness. And it's like, oh, yeah, laziness is the problem. A just do it mentality, as if there aren't so many other factors going into it that are preventing people from doing it in the first place. But I think also even considering yourself and considering them, it's like there's all these things that come up that you never would have thought of and that you don't really think through. And there's a moment where they're all just like, oh, wow, this is a lot worse and a lot harder than I was led to believe it would be. And that I allowed myself to believe it would be also. And that's so interesting. And the shoe kind of dropping on that front is really, really engrossing and entertaining in a way. And it's interesting to say like, okay, what's the next thing that I never would have imagined would be an issue, but it is, because on principle, you think it's easy enough. You think, yeah, no, I could do that. I just keep walking. But then there's all these other things that come into it that really prevent you from doing it that actually aren't your fault, that are beyond your control. And it feels so unfair in that way. And it is so unfair in that way. And I think that you are able to like realize that in the whole like justice of it all, and when you really look at it in that way. And that goes along with the kind of the thing where Ray is saying that like if they all point to an escape hatch and they say this is the way out, of course we're all going to take it. This isn't actually voluntary. This is something that everybody is wanting to do because it's the only way, and that's because of them. That's not because of us. That's not our fault. As much as they try and frame it as their fault, or they can be young upstarts and, you know, well-to-do, and they can, if they just push through and they're just not lazy, that they'll change their fate or whatever. But it's like, no, the whole thing is engineered against you in the first place, and that's such a perceptive kind of, you know, takeaway from Ray that actually, no, this is rigged. This is all rigged. And it will always be rigged as far as we're in this system. I also felt it was very relevant, like, when they started talking about the banning of books and information, I was like, oh, banned information? Banned books, you say? Whew, okay, hitting a little too close to home. There were so many moments like that. It really did hit. I was like, okay. Okay, now there's so many things I could talk. Maybe I should just make more videos. I don't know. I do feel the need to talk about Ray and Pete and their relationship. Because now I want to say that everything I said stands as far as like the platonic, affectionate, and loving relationships goes between these men. Was that fully platonic? Well, debatable. I remember watching, and this is before I knew about, I understand that the book has much more queer subtext, or even text. It's pretty, you know, it's, I've read some passages now, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's giving. But I do remember, you know, watching them, just some of their eye contact was so intense that I remember in the theater going, are they in love? Are they in love? And I am not the person, like, if something is not canon to me, like, usually if there's, and this goes for straight relationships too, I'm not really a crack shit person, so I'm not the type of person that's gonna go, they're in love if the script isn't telling me that they're in love, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just not that kind of person. But the script was kind of telling me. But even without an explicit acknowledgement or like an explicit thing of that, I mean, I think they definitely did kind of confirm that Pete is gay or queer, at least from the, you know, no, I don't have any ladies. That was and also all the Barkovich comments toward him, like, why were they so targeted? Methinks it was internalized homophobia, and he was actually just clocking another member of the community and directing his ire outward, of course. But so, like, I mean, I think it's canon, it's pretty explicit that Pete is gay. They say Ray had a girlfriend. That doesn't really mean all too much. I think I don't know. I'm like, they're in love, but they also called each other brothers. But I did see someone say they just call each other brothers because they don't know what else to call a love so deep between two men. That was funny. And I'm like, I don't know, there's certain look, would I have liked to see them kiss? Kind of. Yeah, kind of. Do I kind of want to see it in another movie? I'm like, that chemistry, whether it's romantic, platonic, they could play villains, they could play enemies, you know, like, I think they could play anything together. There's a spark, there's something there, there's such a good, like, connection and foundation between the two of them. So yeah, I'm like, and also someone was like, oh, well, you wouldn't sacrifice yourself if you weren't in love. But I actually really resent that. And I think that is counterintuitive. to a lot of the great things about this film. I think the point is that you would sacrifice yourself for people that you wouldn't expect, for people that you might not know as well, because that is a human instinct, but also for people that you love in a platonic way. Like, sacrificing yourself for friends is a very valid and noble and correct, you know, response. And so I don't like that they're like saying, well, there's no way he would just sacrifice himself for a friend. It's like, no, I think they both would, even if they were just strictly platonic friends. But are they? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Kind of, sort of, maybe not. I don't know. But see, that's the thing out there. I love that that is there. And I love that that element is there and you could think about it that way. But I also love that, like, underneath that, foundationally, there is just such a love and a friendship between the two of them, but also between all the other boys. Like, that's what I'm talking about when I talk about this, you know, male friendship that is platonic, but also still affectionate and vulnerable and emotional. That is still there in droves, even if you take Pete and Ray to be, like, romantically involved. Are they lovers? Worse, they never got to be. Damn, that's crazy. I've seen some edits. I mean, it is exactly, like, I'm like, again, Lionsgate knows exactly what they're doing with the marketing, because, yes, that is what you should be doing. Hello. Those edits, I'm like, well, yes, and I'm sad, and I will be seeing them. I don't know, but I love their relationship. Like, I think their relationship almost, like, transcends anything and everything in that way, also, where it's like, they're friends, yes. Are they lovers? Maybe, yes. Yes, no. Are they brothers? Yes. They're kind of all of it at once. And I kind of love that. I kind of love that about their relationship. I love their relationship. I really do. Like, whatever it is, whatever the hell it is, love it. I'm on board. Love it. I love their love for each other. At the very least, like, no matter what, they love each other. And that is very clear. That is crystal clear amongst everything else. I do want to say the ending, I did not interpret it as, like, Pete died, or Pete was shot after he killed the major, but I do think that that's a very valid interpretation. I think there's all sorts, I think it's really ambiguous, and it kind of depends on your worldview and also your perspective and your perception of the story. I also love that there can be a debate between, like, whether or not this is a positive or a negative ending as far as, like, Pete kind of turning, right? I think definitely the music cue is sinister. It kind of is, it's warping. It's souring. So that, to me, it seems somewhat indicative of, like, this is not a good thing that Pete just killed the major, because what happened to all the good he was going to do? What happened to those ideals and those strong morals and values that he had? And, you know, he was going to do so much good, and that could have been a better way. And actually, Ray kind of sacrificed himself so that the one who could do good would live, and then he kind of goes back on it, like, for Ray. The whole thing is so twisted and so delicious and complex. There's so much to unpack. You know, whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing. Are they saying that violence needs to be met with violence, and that's the only way that things can change? Are they saying that violence is never the answer? Are they saying, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many different interpretations for the ending, which I love so much about it. It really is so complex. There's so much to unpack. I really could keep talking, but I'm exhausted. So yeah, let me know if you saw this movie. Let me know all your thoughts. I would love to talk about it. If you haven't seen this movie, go see it and then come back and we can talk about it. Maybe I'll make more videos on it. I don't know. I kind of would love to interview the cast. Like, I'm like, get me with Cooper Hoffman and David Johnson pronto, because I have some questions. I have some real journalism to ask, and I just would love to see more discussion about this, more fandom about this. Like, I understand it's not like a traditional awards thing, but I'm like, I don't know. I feel like it should be in the zeitgeist a little bit longer, a little bit more significantly. So I would love to keep talking about it, and I'm sure I will. And there's a million things, as long as I've been talking, there are a million things that I haven't talked about. So let me know what you thought of this movie, and let's continue talking about it and keeping it alive. And I will see you for another video soon.